Make sure you're breathing from your belly if you can. Loosen up your shoulders and your neck. Maybe close your eyes and imagine being in our chapel or our sanctuary. We will definitely be just as connected, just in a different way, though we aren't in our physical space together. As the weeks go on and we get more accustomed to this space, I hope that you can feel like you can tune in and really feel like perhaps you're able to connect in a deeper way, even virtually. I know it seemed like such a strange transition when we first had to do that. So we're going to begin with nigun, a wordless melody, of the melody we've been doing about untying our knots and praying that God loosen the knots that hold us closed and tight, open us. We're in the season now of the days leading up to Tisha B'Av. We're in the intense mourning period communally of the 9 days. And we have had several opportunities this week to come together and to share about loss and heartbreak. And we've said in those gatherings, we've often said that when we acknowledge our pain and when we're able to hold others' pain and loss, it can open us to our own. When we are open and connected to the hurt that we are feeling for any reason, whether related to the pandemic or not, when we're open to that, it offers us an opportunity for wholeness and for healing. When we shut it out, when we don't acknowledge it, we don't have the opportunity to untie those knots and to loosen what constricts us. So I invite you into this space of Shabbat, feeling loose and open, ready to receive. The Kabbalat Shabbat service means the receiving of Shabbat. We are Mikablim Shabbat. We are receiving Shabbat together. And for that, let us open our hearts and our souls so that we can fully receive it. And in turn, we can fully inhabit Shabbat space. So just going to invite you to join me in the melody here. And we're going to sing the words in a little bit. Continue to take your deep breaths. Wherever you're coming from tonight, entering in this Shabbat, we're together. We're all coming from different places, different backgrounds, different emotional states. We're together now, and that is a blessing, and we create truly a sacred community in our togetherness, even in this virtual space. going to light candles, and I invite you to greet one another. If you're on Facebook, you can greet one another in the chat or on Zoom. You can do the same thing. As we do in our chapel or sanctuary, join together to experience the flame, the warmth, the peace of the Shabbat candles. I invite you to really bring that warmth and that peace into your heart this evening. If you're following along in the prayer book, either online or in hard copy, the candle blessing is on page 2. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech ha'olam asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu lehadlik ner shel Shabbat. With that, let's welcome the angels, the messengers of peace. With Shalom Aleichem, we're on page 24 in the book. Shalom Aleichem, Malachei Hasharet, Malachei Elyon. Melech Malachei Hamlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Boachem leShalom, Malachei HaShalom, Malachei Elyon. Melech Malachei Hamlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Baruchuni leShalom, Malachei HaShalom, Malachei Elyon. Melech Malachei Hamlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Seichem leShalom, Malachei HaShalom, Malachei Elyon. Melech Malachei Hamlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So now we're going to sing this mystical plea of Ana Bechoach. Please, God, undo the knot that ties us up. Accept our prayers. Accept the joy of your people. So as you can see, it's shared here on the screen. Please join with us as you feel comfortable. Ana Bechoach, Bechoach, Gedulat Yemincha, Yemincha, Tatir Tzerura, Kaber Rinatamcha, Salveinu, Tzarenu, Nora. We'll sing that part again. Ana Bechoach. we're a bit more open. Hopefully, we're ready to welcome the beloved time, the beloved Shabbat, as envisioned by our sages as a queen or a bride. It's our custom at Ohabei Shalom to sing verses 1, 2, 5, and 9, and we will be on pages 20 and 21. And if you're able to physically rise on the last verse and face the entrance to your home, we can bow in the way that we would if we were welcoming a queen or a bride. But really the point here is that it is a dodi, my beloved. Weeks of pandemic life have taught me anything while leading services from home, it's that Lecha Dodi is my dog Coco's very favorite liturgical piece. She, like clockwork, goes and gets a toy, and sometimes you can hear it because it's a squeaky toy, but she really has that kavanah, really that ruach, that spirit and intention, and I hope all of you have as much of that as she does because she's really into it. But I could feel it. I could feel that energy virtually coming at us. Thank you, as always, to Rabbi Jethro Berkman. I really married up and married very well. Could not have imagined just how useful Jethro would be in this circumstance and in so many others. He is a wonderful husband and dad, and as you can see, really talented with guitar and a talented rabbi himself. So with that, we're going to move on to Tzadik Katamar. We're going to turn in the book to page 22. And this is a part of Psalm 92. It's another part of the psalm that some weeks, many weeks, we sing Magadlu, but we're going to switch it up a little tonight and sing the words Tzadik Katamar Ifrach. A righteous person, like a date palm, will blossom, will bloom. And I've been really sitting with the imagery of openness and opening in this past week. As I mentioned, we had some learning and gathering opportunities in honor of these weeks of mourning and Tisha B'Av, and I've been struck by the connection of being in touch with our loss and our grief and being open to that, and how being open to that is really a gateway into wholeness. So I thought we'd sing this line. If you're in the book, it's on page 22. Otherwise, feel free just to hum along or yadadai. And it's in the middle of the page. Tzadik katamar yifrach ke'erez balevanon yizkeh shetulim bevet Adonai bechatzrot Eloheinu yafrichu od yenuvon beseva deshenim vera'ananim iyu lehagid ki yashar Adonai tzuri velo avlat avot. And those words in the third line, shetulim bevet Adonai, planted in the house of Adonai. Where are we planted? Where is that rich soil that meets all our needs? Where is that for us? Where can we be richly rooted and planted so that we can open forth and bloom and flower? And just a moment of Hebrew learning here. Yifrach and yafrichu, you hear in those words for blooming, for flowering, the word for flower, which is perach, prachim in the plural. Hebrew is a really, speaking of roots, Hebrew is a really wonderful language and an easy language to learn because it's all based on a root system. So now that we have thought about rootedness, we're going to open ourselves up into Baruch Hu, the call to worship, together on page 28. And here too, if we're physically able to rise, we can do that. And please feel free to rise in a spiritual way if you're unable to rise in a physical way. You could face east if that's easy for you. We might pray in the direction of Yerushalayim, of Jerusalem. Baruch hu et Adonai hamevorach.
Baruch Adonai hamevorach leolam va'ed.
Baruch Adonai hamevorach leolam va'ed. In this blessing for the sustaining light of creation, for the miraculous cycles of light and dark that take place without our willing them to, we can be in touch when we notice the natural cycles with a will that is greater and more, that transcends our own. So I invite you, if you're on Facebook or in Zoom, if you are able and would like to share a reflection, that's a pun intended, about light, something you've noticed about light or darkness. I know some of you may have seen the comet, for instance, We were unable to find the comet Neowise in the sky, but maybe some of you did. So if you want to talk about the comet, that streak of light or dark, and want to share with the community through the various platforms, or just with yourself or whoever you're with at home, please feel free to do that. And I'm going to chant this blessing in which we give thanks for God who evenings the evening. Hama'ariv aravim. Evening actually comes from the root of being all mixed up together. So there's a sense of dusk and that liminal space between light and dark. Hama'ariv aravim. Uma'avir yom. I'm sorry, we're on page 30. Uma'avir yom umevi laila umavdil ben yom uven laila Adonai tzvaot shemo el chai v'kayam tamid yimloch aleinu leolam va'ed Baruch ata Adonai hama'ariv aravim. So I saw in the chat that it's not too late to see the comet. You can try again tomorrow night. So maybe we'll have the chance. But how miraculous it is that evening falls and dawn breaks, and we don't have a thing to do with it. It's good to remember to keep us humble. So I'd like to just share the beautiful interpretation of this next blessing, Avat Olam, by Rabbi Rami Shapiro. I invite you to really take in the words. You may have heard them lots of times, or they may be new to you. But I'm just going to read them to you, and you may want to close your eyes and really take them in. We are embraced by arms that find us even when we are hidden from ourselves. We are touched by fingers that soothe us even when we are too proud for soothing. We are counseled by voices that guide us even when we are too embittered to hear. We are loved by an unending love. We are supported by hands that uplift us, even in the midst of a fall. We are urged on by eyes that meet us, even when we are too weak for meeting. We are loved by an unending love. Embraced, touched, soothed, and counseled, ours are the arms, the fingers, the voices. Ours are the hands, the eyes, the smiles. We are loved by an unending love. And I'll chant on page 32 in the book. V'ahavatcha tasir mimenu leolamim, Baruch ata Adonai, ohev amo Yisrael. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Baruch Shem Kevod Malchuto Leolam Va'ed. We'll chant these words of V'ahavta, even more resonant as we are in this week's Torah portion, Devarim. We begin the book of Deuteronomy, and we are soon to read the words of Shema and these words that follow V'ahavta. We're on page 36 in the book. V'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha bechol levavcha ubechol nafshecha ubechol meodecha v'hayu hadevarim ha'ele asher anochi mitzavecha hayom al levavecha ושיננתם לבניך ודיברת בעם בשבתך בביתך ובלכתך בדרך ובשוכבך ובקומך וקשרתם לאות על ידיך והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובישעריך למען תזכרו קדושים לאלוהיכם, אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים, להיות לכם לאלוהים, אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אדוני אלוהיכם, amen. So we're going to turn to Michamocha, which is on page 40. And I just want to offer you the kavanah, the intention, just a thought that when the Israelites, as our sacred story tells us, sang these words at the shores of the Red Sea, we are now standing at another kind of precipice in Torah time. Our people is on the cusp of entering into another kind of unknown and scary waters, even though these waters are not waters at all. They're land, the promised land. Our people stands on the cusp of a radical disruption in all that they knew. In this time, it's something that they've hoped and dreamed for, something that's been promised for so long. And when they stood at the shores of the sea, they were facing the unknown in a very frightening way, not at all sure, not having any sense that this was part of their destiny, that they would make it through. So I just invite you to think about those two poles of our existence where we're standing on the cusp of something new and unknown, and it can be frightening even if it's wonderful and even if it's the fulfillment of a great promise. So we're going to sing to the melody that comes from a line from the Song of Songs, Ani Yeshina. Just yadadai or hum or bring your voice however you're comfortable. Again, we're on page 40. So, going to turn to page 42. Allow ourselves to envision rest, really beautiful, perfect peace, sense of safety and security. As I always say, we really need to be in touch with that sense of safety, of being held and soothed, comforted, blanketed, in order to bring that out into the world where there is such a lack of feeling safe for so many people. So let's really try to get down into that feeling this evening of Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu l'Shalom. Lie us down, Adonai, in peace. V'ha'amidenu shomrenu l'chayim. Allow us to wake up again to a new day for our sacred task as God's partner. And then we're going to sing Ufros Aleinu Sukat Shlomecha. And that's when I really want us to imagine that Sukkot Shalom, that canopy of peace spread over us and all of humanity in this hurting world. Imagine that we're all embraced and connected by something so much larger than ourselves. And we have a very important role to play. We can play that important role as God's partner in healing and bringing wholeness to this world when we feel a sense of safety and security into our pain, when we don't push it away, but when we feel grounded and rooted in our reality, we integrate our experiences into ourselves. So join me on page 42. Ashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu Leshalom V'hamidenu Shomreinu Lechaim Ashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu Leshalom V'hamidenu Now envision that canopy of peace spread over you, spread over all the people you love, spread over the Jewish people, spread over all of humanity. Ufros aleinu sukat, sukat, shelomecha, ufros aleinu sukat, sukat, shelomecha, baruch atah Adonai, haporei sukat shalom aleinu, ve'al kol amo Yisrael, ve'al Yerushalayim, ya'elai, la'elai, ya'elai, la'elai, ya'elai, la'elai, 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 ya'elai, la'elai, 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 ya'elai, la'elai, la'elai. Let's sing Vishamru. We're on page 44, reminding ourselves of the biblical verses about what it means to keep precious, to hold fast to this holy piece of time, this holy cathedral in time, this sanctuary in time. That when we access it, indeed, it really does serve to root us and to help us be in touch with that sense of safety and connectedness that then enables us to go out into the not Shabbat world, the world of Chol, the world of regular time, and to do our work. Join me, if you wish, on page 44. V'shameru v'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם יאירי ביני ובין בני ישראל So we're going to move into the Amidah, the standing prayer. And Josh, who is working behind the scenes tonight, if you wouldn't mind posting again the link to the online prayer book, in case there are some who joined us a little bit late. And you can follow along with the Amidah that way. We'll be reciting the first 3 blessings aloud. I'll be chanting through them. We'll start on page 46. And then we will chant the first couple of blessings and then have time for silent prayer. And please feel free to use the words in the prayer book or any words that are within you this evening. We begin with this prayer that we be able to pray, and as those of us who gathered for a program last night called Heartbreak and Holiness, those folks know that this comes from Psalm 51, and it's actually in the context of a broken heart, that a sacrifice to God is a broken heart. And the psalm begins with this line, "Open my lips that my mouth may declare your praise." Perhaps to that theme of openness again, we have to open our hearts so that we can really fully be connected to the transcendent and all that it holds within it, our life experiences of pain and of joy. Being open to all of that really helps us to connect. So we'll rise in body or spirit and begin on page 46. Adonai, sefatai tiftach, ufi yagid tehilatecha. Adonai, open up my lips, that my mouth may declare your praise. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu, Elohei avotenu v'imotenu, Elohei Avraham, Elohei Yitzchak, Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, Elohei Leah, Ha'el Hagadol, Hagibor v'hanora, El Elyon, Gomel chasadim tovim, v'konei hakol, וזוכר חסדי אבות ואימהות, ומביא גאולה לבני בניהם, למען שמו באהבה. מלך עוזר ומושיע ומגן, ברוך אתה אדוני, מגן אברהם, ועזרת שרה. אתה גיבור לעולם אדוני, מחיי הכל אתה רב להושיע. מוריד הטל, מכלכל חיים בחסד, מחיי הכל ברחמים רבים, סומך נופלים ורופא חולים, ומתיר אסורים, ומקיים אמונתו לשני עפר. מי כמוך בעל גבורות, ומי דומך, מלך ממית ומחיה, ומצמיח ישועה, ונאמן אתה לחיות הכל. ברוך אתה אדוני, מחיי הכל. אתה קדוש ושמך קדוש, וקדושים בכל יום יהללוך סלה. ברוך אתה אדוני, האל HaKadosh. And we go into our own private prayer at this time. going to again use this beautiful image from Psalms that we'll share with you on the screen. Yehi Shalom bechelech, Shalva be'armenotayich. Going to have a moment now to pray for those in need of healing. I know that weighing heavily upon our hearts are the vast numbers of people suffering from COVID in Texas, California, Florida, and many other states. We hold them and the caregivers and the families in our hearts this evening. If you have someone or more than one person you'd like to mention, please, I invite you to say the names out loud or to type them into our chat on Facebook or on Zoom. We'll bring their names into our virtual space. We're going to sing Mishaberach in the middle of page 253. I see the names of Lois Rubin, Liesel, Alan, Marcia, and Isaac. And I'll see if there are other names coming through. Yes, thank you. RBG. Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg. May she know healing and wholeness. So let's really connect with that energy of all those we have named. And I also want to mention from our community, Linda Hoffman, Judy Mabel, I know there are so many others. And also Sally Kaur and Carmen Soto and Sandy Seifert, Aura Soto and Patrick. Let's sing together in the book around the middle of page 253.
May the source of strength, who bless
refuat haguf, healing of spirit and of body. V'nomar, and let us say, Amen. As I mentioned earlier, we begin this Shabbat, the book of Devarim, the book of Deuteronomy. Devarim means words, and it's many words in the form of a farewell address by Moses to the Israelites, just as I said, as they're about to enter the Promised Land. He recalls their past experience. He reiterates laws that they'd received at Mount Sinai. And in the words of the Encyclopedia Britannica entry on Deuteronomy, emphasizes that observance of these laws is essential for the well-being of the people in the land they are about to possess. These laws are going to be essential to the well-being of the people in the Promised Land. Thus, the title Deuteronomy, which is derived from Greek, means a repetition of the law. Not exactly a second law, but a repetition of the law. The book is referred to within the Torah itself as Mishneh Torah, which means the second law. So the long wilderness journey of the Israelites is coming to a close, and Moses, through his long reflection narrative of where they've come from and what they've been through, and wisdom for their next chapter, which they must live without him, gives the Israelites the opportunity to reflect and to really integrate their experience before they move into a radically different future of life in the Promised Land. Moses becomes Moshe Rabbeinu, Moses our teacher, which is how the rabbinic sages referred to him and how we refer to him traditionally to the present day, Moshe Rabbeinu, Moses our teacher. Rabbi Jonathan Sachs notes that this is really a turning point, a shifting of roles for Moshe, for Moses. He becomes an educator par excellence, no longer a legislator, no longer a somewhat reluctant leader of a kvetching bunch of Israelites, but really an educator here as he is nearing the very end of his life and as they are nearing a whole new chapter of their experience. So lately I've been practicing a lot of yoga and reflecting on the concept of being grounded in one's body and mind through awareness of the breath and its connection with the body. In many poses, yoga practitioners are asked to ground down through the feet and notice the connection of their feet to the earth, and then to reach upward or outward with steadfastness and strength. I think there's a connection here. You might be thinking, where is she going with this yoga thing? So I think that similarly, we need to be grounded in where we have come from in order to journey forth with steadiness and with strength into the unknown future. In Parashat Devarim and the rest of the book of Deuteronomy, our ancestors are receiving that gift of groundedness in the past, in their past. How do we ground ourselves in our past and use it to move forward? By integrating our experience, I think by turning it and turning it, exploring it as a text. And I use the phrase turn it and turn it as the famous line from Pirkei Avot tells us that we must do. We must turn it and turn it again, referring to Torah, for everything is in it. I really think that what is meant here is we're meant to take in our experience into ourselves, or Torah, our received wisdom, which comes out of our experience. We're meant to take it into ourselves in a new way, in a way that we could not have taken it in while we were living through it. Throughout the narrative, we see the injunction to, as Rabbi Sachs notes, become a nation of educators. Not only is Moshe Rabbeinu becoming the teacher par excellence, but really telling us that we have to become teachers. Where do we see this in this parasha? Here are some examples. Make known to your children and your children's children how you once stood before the Lord your God at Sinai. In the future, when your child asks you, what is the meaning of the testimonies, decrees, and laws that the Lord our God has commanded you, tell them, we were slaves to Pharaoh in Egypt, but the Lord brought us out of Egypt with a mighty hand. And we chant these words in our services. Teach these words to your children. V'shinantam levanecha. speaking of them when you sit at home and when you travel on the way, when you lie down and when you rise up. Rabbi Sachs says that indeed the last 2 commandments that Moses ever gave the Israelites were explicitly educational in nature, to gather the entire people together in the 7th year to hear the Torah being read, to remind them of their covenant with God. And here's where I think we really have a clue about what we're supposed to do with our past experience and use it as a teacher and use it to ground us. The verse says in chapter 31, verse 19, write down for yourselves this song. We're in a portion here that is written in a poetic form, like a song or poem. Write down for yourselves this song and teach it to the people Israel. And this is understood as the command that each person must write for herself a scroll of the law. We each must create our own Torah. We each must take our lived experience. We must take the wisdom that we have received and make sense of it for ourselves. We are an active part of this work. We are not students in a passive sense, what you might call active learners. The scroll we each need to write is that which comes of exploring our past experiences and making them our own, really delving into them, exploring them, and integrating them. And then we're able to move forward and to use those experiences and learnings to teach others. I think it's precisely this, facilitating the people's integrating and taking ownership of their own experience, giving them the opportunity to make sense of it, is what makes Moses the master educator, Moshe Rabbeinu, our teacher who is the inspiration and the progenitor of this nation of educators. And I think, again, it's not so much because of the content of giving over this incredible oration here, repeating so much content of law, but it's really about the timing and the process, the choice to pause precisely here on the cusp of this next new, profoundly different and promised chapter. The choice to pause here and allow the people to take in from the vantage point of the present, with a promised future on the near horizon, the experiences of their past. In Moshe's oration to them, he is allowing them the time and space to integrate where they have come from, the horrors and the joys, the fears, the courageousness, the losses and the hopes. The injunction to remember is a call to ground ourselves in our experience, take it into ourselves, and in that way, to integrate the learning from that experience. The Israelites' experiences, their successes and their failures, in conjunction with Torah given to them at Sinai to guide them through their journey, will together form the well of wisdom from which they will draw as they create and sustain their society in their land, and afterwards in the diaspora experience as well. Rabbi Shefa Gold writes of this Torah portion, the beginning of the book of Deuteronomy places us at the border of the land of promise after a lifetime of journeying. We pause now to look back at the path we have traveled thus far in order to understand its meaning, receive its lessons, and embrace the wisdom and love that we have received through grace and diligent practice. It is indeed a blessing to come to this place of such wide perspective and calm discernment. Our journey through the wilderness has not taken the form of a straight line, but rather a series of breathtaking spirals that drop us again and again at the same point in a cycle, each time at a new level, with an added dimension of awareness. The blessing, Rabbi Gold writes, of Devarim is the expanded awareness that comes from the attainment of a wide perspective, the ability to see our own lives from the vantage point of dispassionate clarity. From here, we look back on our defeats and our victories, gleaning the blessings of both. Just like our ancestors of the wilderness generation, our journey through the wilderness of living through a pandemic is taking a lot longer than we had expected, and we don't know when we will arrive. finally, to the cusp of the promised land. What we do know is that when we are able to move forward into the promised land of relative freedom from the threat of this disease, we will not be returning to what was, but rather we and the world we inhabit have been dramatically shaped, evolved, and grown by this experience and by both the losses and the blessings of this strange and painful journey. Now that we are more than 4 months into the trek, and as our Jewish calendar calls us to begin to reflect in preparation for a new year, this is an auspicious time for us to ground ourselves by looking back on the journey thus far. And I really invite you to do that by asking yourselves, what has been painful? What has been beautiful? What have we learned? How have we changed? Rabbi Shefa Gold suggests that when we allow ourselves to reflect on our past experiences, we experience a kind of freedom. She writes that we carry our defeats and our victories in our bodies and psyches. If we do not take opportunities to examine how these experiences have affected us, our defeats and victories will continue to exert their power over us and determine how we respond to each present moment. We will then be enslaved to the past. So I'm going to say that again for clarity. She's suggesting that we carry our experiences in our bodies and in our psyches. And if we don't ground ourselves and look back and integrate these experiences, then those past experiences will in a way enslave us to them and will be enslaved to the past. This enslavement will prevent us from entering the land of promise that is before us. The spiritual challenge of Deuteronomy, of Devarim, is to attain an expansive perspective on our lives in order to investigate the imprint of each defeat and each victory. It is then possible to learn from these experiences and turn them into wisdom for the journey. So as we move forward with so much uncertainty and anxiety about what life will look like in the year ahead, may we find freedom, blessing, and rootedness in looking back and reflecting upon whence we have come. Shabbat Shalom. So I'm going to just let that sit for a minute. It was a lot of words, but we're in the Parsha and the book of words, Devarim. We're going to move toward concluding our service with Aleinu, and then we'll have a chance to recite Mourner's Kaddish. I invite you to rise in body or spirit for Aleinu on page 282. Aleinu leshabeach la'adon hakol latet gedula liyotzer bereshit shehu note shamayim veyoser aretz umoshav yikaro bashamayim mima'al ushchinatu zo b'govei meromim hu Eloheinu ein od ואנחנו קוראים ומשתחווים ומודים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים הקדוש ברוך הוא. Page 287. ונאמר והיה אדוני למלך על כל ביום ההוא, ביום ההוא, יהיה אדוני אחד, ושמו, ושמו, ושמו אחד. We remember those who we have loved, we're remembering at this season, or if we're in a period of mourning. Invite you to please type the names of those you may be remembering this evening if you're reciting Kaddish into Facebook chat or Zoom chat. Dorothy, cousin Robbie. And we know that Nathan is remembering.
I can't write it.
Neil. And Yes, Diane, go ahead.
My beloved brother, Eugene Rosen. It's been 8 years.
Anyone else? Alan Crook, Lisa Shaver's favorite college professor and dear friend. May the memory of all those we are remembering this evening bring us blessing. And I'll invite us to rise for Mourner's Kaddish as is our custom, as is your custom, on page 294. Yitkadal v'yitkadash shemei Rabbah. V'alma divra chirutei v'yamlich malchutei. V'chayechon v'yomechon v'chaye d'chol beit Yisrael. V'agala v'zman kori v'imru amen. Yehe shmei Rabbah mevarach le'alam u'lalmei almaya. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh. V'yitadar v'yitaleh v'yitalal shmei d'kodesha b'richu. Le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata. Tushbechata v'nechamata da'amiran mi'alma v'imru amen. Yehe shlama Rabbah min shemaya v'chayim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. Oseh shalom bimromav hu ya'aseh shalom aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. Oseh shalom bimromav hu ya'aseh shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael ve'imru amen. Ya'aseh shalom, ya'aseh shalom, shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael. Ya'aseh shalom, ya'aseh shalom, shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael. Ya'aseh shalom, ya'aseh shalom, shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael. Ya'aseh shalom, ya'aseh shalom, shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael. May the maker of peace enable us to make peace in our world, in part guided by the memories of our beloved ones whom we have lost. So we'll make a little kiddush, a little motzi, and then we'll close with Olam Chesed Yibaneh, which Josh will put up on the screen. And just give me a moment. I need to fetch my challah. Maybe you can fetch yours. And we're on page 5 if you're following along in the book. Vayerev vahivoker yom hashishi. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam borei peri hagafen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav v'ratzavanu v'shabbat kodsho b'yahava uvratzon hinchilanu zikaron lemaaseh v'reshit ki hu yom techila lemikra'ei kodesh zecher letziat mitzrayim kivanu v'acharta v'tanu kidashta mikol ha'amim v'shabbat kodshecha b'yahava uvratzon hinchaltanu baruch atah Adonai mekadesh haShabbat. Amen. ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם המוציא לך מן הארץ. Amen. And we'll close with Olam Chesed Yibaneh to remind ourselves to build a world from love. Olam Chesed Yibaneh, tararai, tai, tai, tararai, tai. Olam Chesed Yibaneh, tararai, tai, tai, tararai, tai. Olam Chesed Yibaneh. So good to be together. I did forget to make a couple of announcements, so I'll do that very quickly and let you go eat your dinner. We are going to gather for Torah study tomorrow morning. Rabbi Schaefer will be leading at 10:30. The Zoom link is in your newsletter. And on Wednesday during the day at 12 o'clock, I will have a session of my Sustaining Our Souls class and discussion group. All are welcome. And then that night is Erev Tisha B'Av. Will be a really special night. We'll be coming together over Zoom with Temple Israel and Temple Sinai, hearing some of the Book of Lamentations. I'll be chanting some of that and also doing some reflecting together to observe the day of Tisha B'Av, which recalls the destruction of our ancient temples and other tragedies throughout Jewish history. So that's coming up this week, along with other things that you may have seen in the newsletter. We continue to be connected spiritually while we're apart physically. Thank you for being with us. Thanks again to Rabbi Jethro Berkman for accompanying me, and thanks to all of you for being here. I wish you a Shabbat full of blessing. Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat